phrase functionally associated appears several times in the National Electrical Code, but it lacks a formal definition, leading to ambiguity. Let's examine its interpretation and implications, particularly within the context of NEC section 725.26b4. The context in which functionally associated is used throughout the code offers some interpretative guidance. Firstly, in section 620.3a, functionally associated can be reasonably understood to refer to cables connected with power conversion equipment. Secondly, in section 770.133a, the phrase is confined to conductors located within a limited physical space, providing additional clarity through physical proximity. Focusing on NEC section 725.26b4, interpreting functionally associated in the absence of a clear definition requires a careful consideration of the intent behind the code. Within this context, functionally associated most likely applies to cables serving similar or related functions within specific equipment or a particular process. Let's consider a practical example to illustrate this further. Imagine a manufactured skid containing multiple mechanical equipment items supplied as a complete assembly. This skid might include a main motor, perhaps two auxiliary motors such as lube oil pumps, and a lube oil heater, all operating at 480 volts. All power cables and Class 1 remote control and signaling signals are routed to a Remote Motor Control Center or MCC via a common cable tray, utilizing 600-volt Type TC cables. This cable tray is also used to carry power and control conductors for other nearby equipment, in accordance with NEC Chapter 3. Crucially, for the scenario, we assume all cables are Type TC and are not metal enclosed. In this example, the power supply and control conductors for the equipment contained within the manufactured skid are very likely functionally associated, given their direct relationship to the skid's operation. However, the conductors of other nearby equipment are likely unassociated, unless they are demonstrably part of the same system or process. Should the other nearby equipment be part of a common service such as a compressor, the conductors might be considered functionally associated if they are related to the operation of the skid's equipment, perhaps through instrumentation and control signals. Now let's turn our attention to the benefits of NEC section 725.26b4. The requirement for a solid fixed barrier between power supply and control conductors in an associated cables is intended to minimize the risk of cross-contamination and interference. This is particularly important in environments where high power cables are present, as the electromagnetic fields they generate can potentially interfere with control signals, disrupting the proper operation of sensitive equipment. Consider the potential risks associated with deleting NEC section 725.26b4. Removing this requirement would increase the potential for cross-contamination and interference between power and control conductors in an associated cables. This could manifest in several ways, including firstly, false alarms or erroneous signals in control systems. Secondly, equipment malfunction or damage. And thirdly, a risk of electric shock to personnel. While the phrase functionally associated may be somewhat ambiguous, it is not necessarily unenforceable. The context within the National Electrical Code provides guidance for its interpretation. Regarding section 725.26b4, the requirement for a solid fixed barrier between associated cables is justified to mitigate the risks of cross-contamination and interference, even though combined power and control cables offer convenience and cost-effectiveness. Deleting this requirement could potentially compromise safety and reliability. A balanced approach would be to retain section 725.26b4 while adding additional guidance in the code commentary to clarify the interpretation of functionally associated within this specific context. This would promote consistent and appropriate application of the requirement, enhancing both safety and operational reliability.